What's up, everybody? It's Eon here with a Metal Gear Solid 5 news update. In this video, I've got tons of new impressions from the Metal Gear Solid 5 preview event, this time from the European press. Like before, I'm going to go in alphabetical order by Twitter user and share what they had to say about the highly anticipated title. There is a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's dive right into it. Our first source is Twitter user Alvaro Alonso from website Hobby Consolas, who played 7 hours non-stop of the Phantom Pain, stating that he doesn't know how he's going to keep it together until September 1st. Here is what he had to say. I have been sneaky, I've been Rambo, I have fiddled with all the weapons and objects, and I still get the feeling that I'm just scratching the surface. The world is huge, the options are infinite, and Big Boss is more Big Boss than ever. In my last mission, a small puppy came close barking non-stop. Now it's in Mother Base, and soon it'll be a diamond dog. Oh, and not all puppies are adorable. A damn bear tore me to pieces in less time than I could say lolly lule lo. He then concluded with, I would keep going, but I have to play. All the answers on June 9th. Next up is Twitter user Antonio Fucito, or Fucito, however you pronounce that, from website Multiplayer, whose tweets are in Italian. I don't speak Italian, but I use the combination of the translations provided by website Metal Gear Informer, fan translations, Google Translate, and my own knowledge of Spanish, which share similarities with Italian, to hopefully make the most accurate translations. He started out by saying that he played Metal Gear Solid 5 and Metal Gear Online for 10 hours for the first time, and that he'll talk about a mission. He then gave some technical details, saying, I played MGS5 on PlayStation 4. The code seemed quite clean and final in practice. I wonder what they'll do in these 2 months. The mission he talked about was the 6th mission set in Afghanistan. Here is everything he had to say. Before a mission, you can choose your initial equipment, with 2 main weapons, 2 secondary, and gadgets. You can even choose Snake's uniform, his buddy, and his equipment, in this case the horse. When a mission starts, it is presented like a movie, with cast, main characters, and guest stars. Once again, this goes in line with what Kojima said about making Phantom Pain feel less like a movie and more like a long-running TV show. Anyway, he then had the following to say. Other than from Mother Base and from the helicopter, you can stay on the map and choose your main mission and side missions in sequence. I'm playing as Venom Snake. The reason why he's not Naked Snake anymore is explained at the beginning. He is Big Boss anyway. Well, there it is. Even more confirmation that Big Boss is Big Boss, for anyone still doubting that. He continued on. Once you're in the map, you find yourself with your horse, which controls with square to run and the analog stick for direction. You can slide to the left or right side with X to not be noticed, and of course, use weapons while riding. With the touchpad, the bottom left brings up the iDroid, and from here you can see the map, select markers, even multiple, but also ask support from Mother Base, call the helicopter, and so on. With R1, you can use the binoculars with multiple levels of zoom. It's vital for marking enemies and getting an idea for what awaits. When the mission starts, you can decide the time of departure, night, 6, or 18. In Mission 6, you must retrieve a particularly important missile launcher, and there are various side missions. Afghan map seems large, it's divided into sectors, but while flying, it's possible to explore without loading or exiting. On the way to the objective, there are always other outposts, perhaps to conquer them to acquire materials. The materials are obviously used for all the customization and upgrades in the game, but I'll say more on June 9th. For example, in Mission 6 I upgraded the Fulton system. Now in addition to people, I can also send heavier stuff back to base. In the options, you can select between 2 types of control systems, FPS type or tactical, changing the layout of the front. I chose tactical with R2 for CQC, with L2 and R2 to aim and shoot, with X switching to crouch or lying on the ground. The primary and secondary weapons, objects, and support gadgets can be used with the D-pad. In the first 2 cases, 2 per button maximum. So overall, it seems as though Phantom Pain's tactical style will control very similarly to Ground Zeroes. I wonder if anyone has tried the FPS mode. Very curious to hear about that. Anyway, his tweets continued. There are ample possibilities for approach. Some parts I did completely stealthy, others in combat, but those are more difficult. Playing stealthily gives much more satisfaction because you can explore, hit targets, and retrieve objects cleanly. It's important to explore previous outposts before your objective. There are blueprints, diamonds, cassette tapes to collect. In the options, it's possible to disable auto-aim and reflex mode. In Mission 6, things had become tougher because an enemy chopper arrived, so I started to run and hid in a rift. At this point, I came across a base camp with a large structure in the rocks. After eliminating almost everyone, I retrieved the missile launcher and called the helicopter. But when I came out, there was fog and the skulls appeared, really angry enemies whom I could only eliminate with a rocket launcher. Very cool in terms of aesthetics and certainly part of the story. Graphically, the game runs very fluidly most of the time. Map and setting are much bigger than Ground Zeroes, some improvements here and there, beautiful light sources. To me, the code seems almost final. These 2.5 months will probably be used to clean and test the online. And that's pretty much the conclusion to Antonio's string of tweets. The rest of them simply reiterated that the embargo for MGS5 and MGO3 will lift on June 9th and June 16th respectively. Next up is Twitter user The Arab Gamer, whose tweets were all in English. The main mission he talked about involved acquiring a weapon called the Honeybee from the Russian army in Afghanistan. We have heard about this before and we'll get confirmation of what this weapon is from another user, and I'll get to that later. There is lots of different ways to approach the mission, he says. For example, I could storm in the base and go Rambo style, or gain intel. Gaining intel, I could find exactly where the weapon is kept and then figure out a sneakier approach as opposed to running around. I ran into some tanks. I need to take care of it. Looks like I'll need to recruit some engineers to build a rocket. I'm sorry, did you say rocket? I'm guessing rockets can be used for airstrikes, like we have seen in previous Phantom Pain footage. Although rockets could be referring to missiles for a rocket launcher. His string of tweets continued with, "There is so much to upgrade, from iDroid to your binoculars. I upgraded my binoculars to identify soldier skills from a distance. This is definitely the same upgrade we saw in the African jungle gameplay. I then managed my staff properly to build better herbal medicine and rockets, because that's how I roll. I finally found the weapon, and something incredible happened after. MGS fans will love this. Really wish I could tell you all. After finishing the mission, all I could say is wow. It's one of those games that people will keep playing for hours. The game doesn't follow your conventional MGS formula. It's new and fresh, and I'm sure newcomers will love it. The attention to detail is incredible. The daylight affecting your vision, wildlife, and 80s music. I freaking love this." He finally concluded with, "Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going back to Mother Base." I wonder what this incredible thing that MGS fans would love is. I guess we'll find out on June 9th. Next up is Francesco Fossetti from website EveryEye, another Italian source. Sorry if I mispronounced the name. For translation, I basically used the same resources as with Antonio. Francesco too had a lot to say, so brace yourself. Alright, so here is a translation for his string of tweets. I've played MGS5 for 10 hours, impressive for its scope and inspiration, but today I can only talk about one mission. 10th mission in Afghanistan. The environment is huge. It really is stealth meeting free roaming. The relationship with Mother Base is very important. Before I get into the action, it's better to develop the right equipment. The management of Mother Base is like an incredibly enhanced version of Metal Gear Peace Walker and Portable Ops. The stealth mechanics of Ground Zeroes feel right at home in the open world environments of the Phantom Pain, even enhanced. Every mission has optional side ops, which can be discovered by interrogating guards and exploring the area. You can also develop an impressive array of weapons, including upgrades for the arm that function as perks. The approach to the missions can change greatly depending on the time of day and the equipment. Great sense of freedom. The stealth approach is very encouraged. If you're discovered, the alerts are dangerous and very long, and the score will suffer. The missions are modular, with diverse objectives, in zones contained by the immense game map. Currently, the objective of my mission is to infiltrate a base and find Emmerich, but in turn, I'm told there is a sniper named Quiet. Watch out. So it looks like we'll meet Quiet pretty early on in the game in a mission to find Huey. The plot thickens. Moving on, he said, "You can really notice the level design in the most important missions. Always inspired, atmospheric, and extremely calculated. Metal Gear Solid 5 is unquestionably a game with Kojima's signature. It's full of his brilliant and genius ideas. Work on the accompanying music is enormous. Positional audio, enveloping soundtrack that adapts to the pace of the game. Binoculars are fundamental to study approach strategies and guards and outposts. Now here's something interesting. Depending on your actions, you can gain or lose heroism. Keeping a low profile is essential to make a good impression." It seems as though Metal Gear Solid 5 will have some kind of morality system that will affect how the world reacts around Snake. Interesting stuff indeed. Anyway, Francesco went on. The alternation between infiltration and action is fast, the pace well maintained. Obviously, it's the stealth that gives more satisfaction. Sometimes a sandstorm would reduce visibility, making infiltration easier. Before you go on a mission, you can choose a buddy, the horse or wolf. There are secondary missions you can have Diamond Dogs members complete. I'm assuming that he's referring to something similar to Outer Ops from Peace Walker. Francesco went on. 3 months from launch, Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is very clean, very smooth 60 FPS except some few cases. Technically excellent. The top is the management of light sources. Some surface effects have less texture than Ground Zeroes, but with an environment that's 10 times bigger. He then talked about some of the tougher enemies players will be facing. The enhanced Super Soldier team, Skulls, are tough. They bounce everywhere and they seem very angry. Came into conflict with Quiet among Splendid Ruins. Very beautiful. A boss fight integrated into open world progression. Tension at the highest levels. Kojima has a passion for snipers. Hell yes, so it looks like Quiet can be a boss fight after all. I kind of expected this, but it's good to finally get confirmation. My guess is that if players kill her with lethal weapons, she'll die right there and then. But if players manage to neutralize her through non-lethal means, she can be recruited, since Kojima has stated before that players' actions can influence whether certain storylines play out or not. But again, just a guess. And that's where Francesco Fossetti stopped his tweets. He also answered a couple of fan questions. When one fan asked if Phantom Pain is an improvement over Ground Zeroes at a technical level, he replied with, "Some texture effects are lessened, but the environment is immensely wider." This was followed up with another question asking what's not so good. His reply was similar to what he said before, only surface effects of certain textures, bump map type, but the code isn't final. Then, when asked if the game runs at glorious 60 FPS, he replied once again that yes, all 60 FPS. Dips almost absent, really sporadic, and mostly during cutscenes. Another user asked how deep the mother-based customization system was, to which he replied, "Very deep, very well implemented, although not too intuitive at first. You can build bridges, place weapons, and create divisions of soldiers with specific tasks who can help during missions, recon, gadget development, and more." The topic then shifted back to technical aspects of the game, with a user asking if what Francesco played was the PS4 version and if Phantom Pain is on the same level as the E3 trailer. He confirmed that yes, he was playing on the PS4 version, and also stated that he'd have to re-watch the trailer for comparison, but the quality is very high. On a similar note, a user asked if the event will allow journalists to test the PC version of the game, to which he replied, "Consoles only." Next, a user asked if players can request an intervention of a team of soldiers from Mother Base, or just support via helicopters, to which he replied, "For now, support. Recon, supply drop, bombings." Last but not least, a user asked about his encounter with Quiet, wondering if the open approach to boss fights has convinced him, or if something is lost as a result. His reply was simple: "The first boss fight I encountered, it's very beautiful." Alright, let's move on to our next Twitter user, GamePro Germany. Their tweets were naturally in German, but fortunately website Metal Gear Informer provided a translation. GamePro Germany had the following to say: "We are now playing MGS5 at the MGS5 preview. First impressions, lots to do, deeply integrated mother base mechanic. The opening sequence of MGS5 alone is once again classic Kojima, cinematically presented and quite a number of what the fuck moments. So it looks like the latest version of Metal Gear Solid 5 will start with the hospital scene, and it seems like this intro portion of the game will have a lot to offer. Can't freaking wait." Next up, we have Twitter user Jesus Beja from website 3D Juegos, a Spanish-speaking source who had one simple thing to say. "With one day with MGS5 preview, the thing I liked most was how polished it is despite the months left until launch." Moving on, let's take a look at tweets from Matthew Castle, who is an editor at Official Xbox Magazine, and who spent 7 hours with the game. The mission he played involves helping rebel militia by blowing up Soviet vehicles en route to suppress their activities. He had the following to say about his experiences. "Really good example of open world stealth, as you have a large region in which to ambush the vehicles. iDroid map tracks tank's journey to help plan attack. Pumping manpower into Mother Base Intel team provides map details too. Mission recommended missiles, but I've not invested in those yet. Going sneaky with C4 traps instead. Takes a lot of C4 to take out tanks, Learned the hard way when I disable the wheels and the turret continues to pummel me. Also, easy to run out of C4, so need to order supply drops. Feel like a real pro until I drop supply crate on Big Boss's head. Mission throws in bonus objectives: free a political prisoner being transported or ambush an arms truck for a rocket launcher. Snipe out truck driver, the weapon feels great by the way, and steal his truck to reach distant tanks, but manage to drive tank off cliff. Guard below sees me, so game enters slow-mo reflex mode as I fall. Thelma and Louise moment. Decide to stick to trusty D-Horse for future runs. Have upgraded its armor so now wears a riot shield on its face. Hardcore. Tonally, this mission is played quite straight, but have no fear. The game does feature full-on Kojima madness too. My favorite part, you can steal tapes of 80s pop songs and play them mid-mission as your own soundtrack. Blowing up tanks to The Man Who Sold Me the World is spectacular. I also upgraded my iDroid so I can play music out loud. Not great for stealthy runs, but good for dramatic entrance. And that's where he ended his tweets. Lots of cool little new details, with my favorite being that the iDroid can be upgraded with speakers so players can listen to music out loud. Of course, the drawback to this is that enemies can hear the music too, but I imagine this feature could be used as a means to draw or distract enemies as well. Next up is yet another Spanish-speaking source, Nacho Ortiz from website Meristation, who played 7 hours and 5 missions of the game in the first day and then accumulated 14 hours on the second day. He had the following to say about his experience. I managed to upgrade Mother Base to level 20 just to develop Solid Snake's sneaking suit. He's likely referring to the sneaking suit shown during TGS 2014. He continued on, I have completed 12 main missions and 6 side missions. The narrative is fragmented in episodic format like a TV show. Big Boss's prosthetic arm can level up. You can add reflex duration, stun, a rocket, explosives, or sonar. The prologue, Cypher's attack on the hospital against Big Boss, and the escape is brutal. Tension, confusion, surprises, and graphics. Until now, the most powerful weapon that I could use is a prototype-guided missile, Honeybee. It's key in certain combat scenarios. So there you have it folks, the Honeybee is not the mini Metal Gear like many assumed. It's a prototype-guided missile. Perhaps it's the one that we saw Ocelot drop towards the end of the MGO3 trailer, which looks a lot like Peace Walker's FIM-43 Red-Eye, which featured an infrared homing system. Anyway, he had more to say. Before each mission, we can personalize equipment: suit, primary and secondary weapon, explosives, companion, and character. For now, I can only choose Snake. Ocelot playable? Quiet playable? I still don't know what Kojima's hiding about this. Wait, hold up. Is he saying that you can control other characters apart from Snake? Or that the preview he played somehow suggests that? That would completely go against what Kojima stated before about Snake being the only playable character. I was thinking that maybe he was referring to MGO3, but he makes no mention of that. He states that before a mission, players can choose a character. Can you imagine playing a mission as Ocelot or Quiet? How awesome would that be? Speculate away in the comments below. The last thing that Nacho had to say is, yesterday I went crazy repeating missions and leaving my enemies unconscious to recruit them with Fulton and level up my Mother Base. Next up is Twitter user Official PlayStation Magazine UK, who played the game for 7 hours prior to sharing their impressions tweets. The mission they talked about was Mission 7. Here is what they had to say. So let's talk about Mission 7. Here is an interesting fact. We are doing this after Mission 10. Goodbye linear mission orders. Our objective is to eliminate 3 platoon commanders who are meeting in a small town surrounded by guards. Our loadout includes a silenced AM MRS-4 assault rifle, a Renov ICKX sniper rifle, the WU-S pistol for tranq darts, and C4. By the way, the loadout is totally our call. Want to take naught but rockets, provided you have researched them, and grenades? Sure. So 3 targets and total freedom on how to approach. 1 target is already at the location, but the 2 are en route. Thanks to our intel team, their expected routes are on the iDroid map, so we pick our heli drop-off point far to the south and plant some C4 in the expected path of 1 jeep. Boom, 1 target down, and the base infiltration gets a lot easier. The action is so good that it's always a temptation to go in loud, and there are gun emplacements everywhere to tempt you. But we are old school, so we choose to be quiet. We picked the mission start time at night, so it's dark. That gives us the edge. TPP is all about gathering intel to press forward. By systematically interrogating guards, we uncover the meeting room. Every small town feels like classic MGS setup, with multiple infiltration points and routes, and that's all they had to say. They did answer 2 questions about story. The first question was if Phantom Pain's non-linear structure makes the story hard to follow. The reply was, not really. Each mission has its own contained story, but the overarching lore has its moments. We'll say no more. And then another user asked, is there any reference to MGR or even just a hint that Raiden will be in the game? The answer was nope. Now keep in mind that Raiden was born sometime in the 1980s, so timeline-wise, it's unlikely we'll see too much of him. As currently in 1984, Raiden would be a small toddler at best. But if the game advances in years with each chapter, then it's certainly possible we'll at least get a reference or that we'll get a good brief look at him. Also, keep in mind the MGS5 preview event only encompasses the first dozen or so missions, meaning story-wise it barely scratches the surface, so anything's possible. Next up we have French Twitter user Pantha, who is a journalist from website Jeux Vidéo. I took a bit of French in high school, and it's similar to Spanish, so I should be able to decently translate these tweets. He didn't have much to say anyway. This user played around 15 hours of the game in total. Here's what he had to say. For your information, I am on PS4, and my current mission is to escape from a cave base with a rather special weapon. I'm guessing he's talking about the honeybee weapon. It's clear that the game is beautiful, but it still has a little clipping and aliasing. It remains fluid and well done. Next up is Twitter user PS Extreme Polska, a Polish news outlet. The translation will be a bit rough since I speak no Polish whatsoever, but here goes from what I gathered from Google Translate. This user, who managed to make it to Mission 12, mentioned a new type of vehicle, the bipedal mech. So it seems that this vehicle or weapon will first come into play in Mission 12. Then, the user talks about how players can steal enemies, likely referring to the Fulton recovery system, and that at night, the enemy base is full of people and a helicopter with searchlights, encouraging a peaceful or sneaky infiltration. Then there is mention of a faithful steed with light armor on the hill, likely referring to the horse. There is also further confirmation that during the day, hiding is much more difficult. The user finishes the string of tweets by stating that the game is great, complicated, and quite free, but also different from the previous ones, especially in narrative. Alright folks, last but not least we have Samuel Casado, who tweeted in English about the game. Here is what he had to say. Game's massive and gorgeous. The mission I'm on, the 6th, reminded me of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade in terms of locale. The 6th mission offers as much freedom and stuff to do as the entirety of Ground Zeroes. Truly Game of the Year material. That's right folks, one mission offers as much as Ground Zeroes. Still don't believe that Phantom Pain is 200 times larger than Ground Zeroes? I sure do by now. He then said, arrived at a temple carved into a mountain on a horse that's pimped with camo armor. The moonlight makes me look like Zorro. I spent most of the first hour of the mission gathering medical plants and hunting birds. Yeah, you can do that, and it's ace. So bam, there you have it, birds confirmed as part of MGS5's animal ecosystem. Probably much less intrusive than, say, the recently confirmed bears. Samuel then tweeted, fan of David Lynch? Yeah, you'll enjoy playing what I'm playing now. For those who don't know, David Lynch was in part a musician, so perhaps we'll get to hear some of his music in the radio or boombox. For his final tweet, Samuel had something pretty major to say. Okay, one last thing. If a certain MGS1's villain's mindfuckery was your thing, then the Phantom Pain will be right up your alley. There it is folks, Psycho Mantis pretty much confirmed. The creepy child with the gas mask is indeed none other than young Mantis, and I'm super excited to see how his story plays out. And with that, I would like to conclude this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If I missed any tweets, let us know in the comments below, and tell us your thoughts on all this amazing new information. And of course, share this video with your friends, your fellow gamers, your family, whoever. Anyway, to be further updated on Metal Gear Solid 5, stay tuned on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out.